We are called to be true and genuine in the midst of all evils. 19 July 2020, 16th Sunday of the Ordinary Times. Today's Gospel passage is a continuation of the last Sunday's reading about the parable of the seeds. Today's passage, 4 to 40, also has said, Masters, let the weeds also grow along with the plants. Don't remove the weeds as you try to take a plant also. Here we see some important lessons. God's patience and tolerance. Often we tend to take God's patience as a sign of His weakness or inability. But actually, God waits and longs for us. He hopes that we might decide to mend our ways of life and correct our value systems. In the case of weeds, it's not possible that the weeds will turn out to be good plants in future. But in our case, as thinking human beings, who have been blessed with the great gift of freedom, we can always realize our mistakes and begin to live a good life that is pleasing in the eyes of God. Again, these words show God's concern over unjust suffering. The Master is concerned that even one good plant should not be destroyed in the process of removing the weeds. Our legal system also has something similar. Even a criminal may go unpunished, but an innocent should never be punished. And in my opinion, a good person is already paying enough to be good, and on the top of it, why to punish him or her further? So God is not happy with any kind of unjust suffering or ill treatment meted out to anyone. Let us, however, now reflect upon two other important insights with some more details. The master sows only good seeds, but the weeds also grow along with the wheat. The workers are so surprised that they come to the master to inquire, Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where then did the weeds come from? And the master replies, The weeds are planted by the evil one. Let us highlight two important insights. One, we need to fight against the evil from within and without. As the workers ask their master, we too often ask God how to explain the evil that we experience within ourselves and outside of us. How come we experience so much of evil in our society, individually and collectively? There are many structural evils which seem to be unfortunately steadily growing today. The parable teaches us that the good and the bad, the moral and the immoral, the right and the wrong, the intended and the unintended, all have to coexist together. This scenario raises some pertinent questions as well. If God has created everything, and if God has found everything good in His creation, as it is given in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 31, how come there is evil in the world? We experience evil at various degrees and dimensions. Still more intriguing question would be, if God has created human beings in His image and likeness, how come human beings turn out to be sinful and selfish? Further, the most fundamental and burning question would be, if God is good, powerful and loving, why is there evil at all in the world? This is actually a perennial problem that humanity has been struggling with. Basically, it is a scenario of good, loving and powerful God vis-a-vis the problem of evil in the world. Philosophically, it's known as the problem of theodicy. In Greek, theos means God and dike means justice, that is, how to justify the presence of evil along with the notion of theistic God. It, in fact, involves a lengthy philosophical and theological explanations and reflections. To cut the long story short, we can say it is a human freedom. The ability and the possibility of choice makes the evil necessary. If God has created us totally holy and saintly without any possibility of going astray, we will not be human beings as such. We shall be like robots who are pre programmed to do only what God wants us to do. And we will be acting in the way in which we have been wired or designed to behave. Then there is no credit of being a human being. Therefore, God created us with the element of freedom and thinking ability so that we may think correctly and choose freely what is good and right for us. It is this feature of freedom and reasoning power which gives us the identity of being human person. But the sad and disturbing part is that in the very process of using that great gift of freedom, we can go, and in fact, we do go astray. We can and do make wrong choices. Often we tend to be selfish, we make wrong judgments. As we lack holistic experiences of life and lack genuine discretion, we often end up with narrower outlooks and short sightedness. It's our basic human existential experience that it seems to be very spontaneous, and in order to protect ourselves, we begin to tell lies, to be unjust, to harm others, and so on. Once a little girl came out of the kitchen. Her mother finds some sugar around her lips, and the mother asks the child, "Did you take sugar?" The child immediately says, "No." But the mother slowly points out to those crystals of sugar sticking around the girl's lips. And the girl wipes and sees them and says, "Yeah, a little bit I took." The mother tells her, "I have already told you, don't eat sugar, it will spoil your teeth, okay?" Next day, the girl, after eating the sugar, nicely wipes her lips and comes out. But the mother finds that she has taken sugar. "Did you eat sugar?" The child says, "No. See my lips, there is no sugar around, okay?" The mother tells her, "Don't tell me a lie. See the small stool that I had kept the other side. You brought it under this cupboard to reach out to the sugar box, right?" And the child acknowledges and says, "Yeah, only a little I took." The mother, in a firm voice, cautions her not to eat any more sugar. On the third day, after eating sugar, the girl carefully keeps the stool back in its place, wipes her lips, and comes out. But the mother stops her and asks, "You ate sugar inside, right?" The girl immediately says, "See, no sugar around my lips. The stool is in its original place." And the mother tells her, "Don't tell me lie. I have kept the sugar box in a particular way. Now it is turned the other side. So you took sugar, right?" And the girl is forced to say yes. And she says, "Yes, I took a little." The mother strictly warns her, "Don't take any more. Okay, this is a final warning, all right?" On the fourth day, after eating sugar, the child carefully wipes away her lips, keeps the stool back in its place, and turns the box to keep in the right position, and comes out boldly, thinking that her mother cannot catch her today. But to her great surprise, her mother finds out that day also. "Did you eat sugar in the kitchen?" And the girl retorts, "What, every day you are doubting me? I did not eat any sugar. See, no sugar around my lips. The stool is in its place. The box is in the same position." And the mother tells her, "Don't tell lies. The lid of the sugar box is very loose. I had closed it tightly, but you did not close it properly." Actually, the girl, in her fear, did not close the lid properly, of course. Now, this may be an imaginary event, but it has deep insights. How did the girl learn to be cautious to do things not to be caught by her mother? How did she learn to tell lies? Who taught her? I am sure not her parents or elders at home would have taught her to tell lies. Further, why does she tell lies? She wants to escape from her mother's punishment. She finds a struggle within her. On the one attracted by the pleasure of eating little sugar, but on the other hand she knows it displeases her mother. In order not to displease her, she wants to forego sugar, but the attraction is very strong towards sugar and she ends up with eating sugar. She is not able to do what she wants, but she is doing the very thing that she does not want to do. This is what St. Paul also experiences. In Romans 7:15 we find, I do not understand what I do, for I don't do what I would like to do, but instead I do what I hate. Precisely, this is the spiritual struggle for us. We are being pulled by the good and bad. We have to deal with this struggle throughout our lives. At every stage, at various levels, we have different types of struggles. As we grow, we turn to be a diabetic, but there will be different elements causing us the struggles. So we need a strong willpower, we need clarity in our value systems, we need genuine discernment, we need strength and courage to choose what is good and right. And the second insight would be for our reflection, the real, the genuine, and the good will finally prevail. The weeds seem to grow much faster and healthier. They appropriate the water and the manure meant for the good plants, and the weeds grow much stronger and quicker. It's our experience that the fake and the duplicate often look more real than the original ones. The plastic flowers look more real and beautiful than the actual ones. Once, when Charlie Chaplin was still alive, there was a competition of fancy dress. The theme for the competition was to dress up like Charlie Chaplin. When Charlie Chaplin came to know about it, out of curiosity, he also wanted to participate in that competition. Many had come up dressed up like him and made funny things to imitate him. Charlie Chaplin also took part in it. Finally, when the results were announced, he got the third prize. Today, the fake and the duplicate seem to be powerful and successful, but in due course of time, its real color will come out. We need not be disturbed or dismayed by the success and the influence of the fake and the duplicate, the untrue and the unholy, because the victory or the domination of the fake will not last longer. The life and the teachings of Jesus, time and again, prove that the truth will emerge victorious at the end. It's also our life experience that the truth will prevail at the end. Truth may be delayed but cannot be destroyed. Truth may be silenced for some time, but it cannot be totally eliminated. That is what we find in the parable also. At the end, the weeds are collected and burnt. That shows in the final analysis only the good and the truth will prevail. In the beginning, it might seem that the evil is flourishing and thriving very well. But at the end, the real judgment will give the evil what they deserve. It is like the usual formula of a standard movie. In the first half, the villain will persecute the hero who is fighting for truth or justice. The hero suffers a lot and the villain is very successful. But after the interval, in the second part, the whole story slowly changes in the other direction. At the end, the villain will be punished or eliminated, and the hero, who is representing justice, peace, equality, and social harmony, will be emerging successful. Therefore, If we suffer just because we are doing good or we like to be good, if no one recognizes our goodness, we need not worry about it because God will reward us justly and the truth and the goodness will prevail at the end. So we need not get discouraged or disheartened if we happen to face struggles and losses for being good or truthful. Let's always preserve to be good. Let's always persevere. Let's always continue to do good. Let us insist to be real and genuine. Let's always strive to be truthful because truth will succeed at the end. As long as we are truthful, we are on the side of God because our God is God of truth. Let us reflect on this today.